Marcus Thompson stood at attention outside Buckingham Palace, his red tunic pristine and his bearskin hat perfectly positioned. To the thousands of tourists who passed by daily, he was just another ceremonial guard, a living statue whose only purpose was to look impressive in photographs. They had no idea that beneath the ornate uniform stood one of Britain's most lethal marksmen. The morning sun cast long shadows across the palace courtyard as Marcus maintained his rigid pose. His eyes, trained to spot the smallest movement at impossible distances, tracked a pigeon landing near the palace gates. Even in this ceremonial role, his mind remained sharp, constantly analyzing his surroundings. Few people understood that being a Queen's Guard required the same level of training and discipline as any elite military unit. Marcus had joined the Coldstream Guard straight from basic training, drawn by the regiment's proud history and rigorous standards. While other soldiers sought glory in far-off battlefields, he found purpose in the precision and discipline required for ceremonial duties. Every movement had to be perfect, every detail immaculate. It was this attention to detail that would later make him exceptional at something far more dangerous than standing guard. The transformation began during his first military shooting competition. The Coldstream Guards prided themselves on marksmanship, and every soldier was expected to demonstrate proficiency with various weapons. Marcus approached the firing line with the same methodical precision he brought to his ceremonial duties. While other soldiers chatted nervously or boasted about their shooting experiences, he remained silent, studying the targets and calculating wind conditions. When the shooting began, something remarkable happened. Marcus didn't just hit the targets. He placed every shot with surgical precision. The range instructor, a grizzled sergeant with 30 years of experience, watched in amazement as this quiet guardsman consistently placed rounds within millimeters of each other at distances that challenged even experienced marksmen. Other soldiers gathered around the targets, unable to believe what they were seeing. "Lucky shots," muttered Corporal Davies, a soldier known for his own shooting abilities. Probably beginner's luck, but Marcus knew it wasn't luck. He had discovered something within himself, a natural ability that felt as comfortable as breathing. The rifle seemed to become an extension of his body, and hitting distant targets felt as natural as pointing his finger. Word of Marcus's shooting ability spread quickly through the regiment. Initially, his fellow guards were impressed, but as his reputation grew, so did the jealousy and skepticism. Some soldiers couldn't accept that this quiet, unassuming man possessed such extraordinary skill. They began to question his achievements, suggesting that he must be cheating somehow or that the targets were rigged in his favor. The ridicule started small, whispered comments about the palace pretty boy, who thought he was a real soldier. Some guards made jokes about how standing still all day had somehow made him better at holding a rifle steady. Others suggested that his ceremonial training was useless in real combat situations. Marcus absorbed these comments in silence, never responding to the taunts or defending his abilities. His quiet nature only seemed to encourage more mockery. Captain Richardson, the regiment's commanding officer, noticed the tension building around Marcus. He had seen talented soldiers before, but there was something different about this guardsman. During official shooting assessments, Marcus consistently outperformed soldiers with years more experience. His scores weren't just good, they were exceptional by any military standard. Yet instead of celebrating this talent, some soldiers seemed determined to diminish it. The situation reached a boiling point during a regimental shooting competition. Marcus had been selected to represent the Coldstream Guards against other elite units, including members of the Parachute Regiment and Royal Marines. These were soldiers who considered themselves the pinnacle of military excellence, and they looked down on ceremonial guards as playing dress-up, rather than being real warriors. As Marcus prepared for the competition, he could hear the snickers and comments from competitors. "Look at the toy soldier," one paratrooper said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Hope he doesn't trip over his bearskin hat." The Royal Marines were equally dismissive, making jokes about palace guards who spent more time polishing boots than training for combat. Marcus ignored the comments, focusing instead on his breathing and the familiar weight of the rifle in his hands. The competition consisted of multiple stages, each designed to test different aspects of marksmanship. Participants would shoot at various distances under different conditions and with time constraints that simulated combat stress. Many of the competitors were veterans of actual combat operations, men who had faced enemy fire and lived to tell about it. They viewed this competition as their rightful domain, a place where ceremonial soldiers had no business competing. Marcus's first few shots silenced some of the mockery. His targets showed groupings so tight they appeared to be single holes. As the competition progressed through increasingly difficult stages, his performance remained consistently extraordinary. While other shooters struggled with wind conditions and distance calculations, Marcus seemed unaffected by external factors. His shots landed exactly where he intended round after round. The atmosphere around the firing line began to change. The casual dismissal gave way to grudging respect, then to amazement, and finally to something approaching disbelief. How could this quiet guardsman, known primarily for standing motionless outside a palace, outshoot some of Britain's most elite warriors? The whispers changed from mockery to speculation about his background and training. By the end of the competition, Marcus had not only won, but had done so by a margin that left no room for doubt or excuses. His scores were so exceptional that officials double-checked the targets and scoring systems. Some competitors demanded to examine his rifle, convinced that some modification must explain his performance. They found nothing unusual, just a standard military rifle in the hands of an extraordinary marksman. As Marcus prepared to leave the range that day, he overheard a conversation that would change his life. Two officers from the Special Air Service were discussing his performance, their voices carrying a mix of professional interest and genuine amazement. "We need to keep an eye on that one said to the other. "Natural talent like that doesn't come along often." Marcus pretended not to hear, but something stirred within him, a sense that his true calling might lie beyond the ceremonial duties he had grown to love. The weeks following the shooting competition brought unexpected changes to Marcus's routine. While he continued his ceremonial duties at Buckingham Palace, word of his extraordinary marksmanship had reached the highest levels of military command. Officers who had never spoken to him before suddenly found reasons to visit the guard posts, studying this quiet soldier who had embarrassed some of Britain's most elite units. Major Williams from the Special Air Service arrived at the palace on a crisp Tuesday morning, dressed in civilian clothes but carrying himself with the unmistakable bearing of special forces. He approached Marcus during a guard change, when the rigid formality of ceremonial duty briefly relaxed. "Guardsman Thompson," he said quietly, "I'd like a word." Marcus had been expecting this conversation ever since overhearing the SAS officers at the range. They walked to a quiet corner of the palace grounds, away from curious ears and prying eyes. Major Williams got straight to the point. "Your shooting at last week's competition was remarkable. The kind of natural ability we rarely see, even among our most experienced operators." Marcus remained silent, unsure how to respond to such praise from someone whose reputation preceded him throughout the military. "The SAS is always looking for exceptional individuals," Williams continued. "Men who can perform under pressure, who possess skills that can't be taught through conventional training. Your marksmanship suggests you might be such a person." He paused, studying Marcus's reaction. "Would you be interested in attempting selection for the Special Air Service?" The question hung in the air like morning mist. Marcus had heard stories about SAS selection, the brutal physical and mental challenges that broke even the strongest soldiers. The failure rate was notorious, with over 90% of candidates unable to complete the course. Yet here was an opportunity to test himself against the ultimate standard of military excellence. "I would be honored to try." "Sir," Marcus replied, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was agreeing to attempt. Williams smiled slightly, the first crack in his professional demeanor. "Good. But understand this, your shooting ability got you noticed, but it won't guarantee success. Selection tests everything about a man, not just his ability to hit targets." The next few months became a careful balancing act. Marcus continued his ceremonial duties while secretly preparing for SAS selection. His fellow guards noticed changes in his routine: longer physical training sessions, more time spent studying maps and navigation techniques. Some assumed he was preparing for promotion within the regiment, while others suspected something more significant was brewing. The ridicule that had followed his shooting success continued, though it took on a different tone. Soldiers who had questioned his abilities now seemed almost resentful of his achievements. Thompson thinks he's special now, Corporal Davies complained to anyone who would listen. Winning one shooting competition has gone to his head. The comment stung more than Marcus let on, but they also strengthened his resolve to prove himself in an arena where questions about his abilities would be definitively answered. Captain Richardson called Marcus to his office 6 weeks before selection was scheduled to begin. "I've received official orders regarding your temporary assignment," he said, sliding a folder across his desk. "I can't say I'm surprised. Your performance has been exceptional since joining the regiment. But I want you to understand what you're attempting." The captain's expression grew serious. SAS selection isn't just physically demanding. It's designed to identify men who can function effectively under extreme stress. They'll push you beyond what you think is possible, then push further. Many excellent soldiers have attempted selection and failed. There's no shame in that, Marcus nodded, appreciating the warning but feeling no less determined. However, Richardson continued, if you do succeed, you'll join the most elite military unit in the world. Men who have proven themselves in conflicts around the globe. Operators whose very existence often remains classified. It's an extraordinary opportunity for any soldier. The weight of possibilities settled on Marcus's shoulders like his ceremonial uniform, heavy with tradition and expectation. The final weeks before selection passed quickly. Marcus refined his physical conditioning, pushing his endurance and strength to new levels. He studied navigation techniques, memorizing map symbols and compass bearings until they became second nature. Most importantly, he worked on mental preparation, understanding that the psychological challenges of selection often proved more difficult than the physical demands. His shooting practice continued, though now it felt different. Instead of firing at static targets under controlled conditions, he practiced scenarios that might reflect real-world operations. Quick target acquisition, shooting while fatigued, engaging multiple targets under time pressure. Each session pushed his skills into new territory. The rifle remained an extension of himself, but now he began to understand how marksmanship might function as part of a larger tactical picture. The night before departing for selection, Marcus stood his final ceremonial guard duty for what might be months. The familiar weight of his bearskin hat and the rhythm of changing guard felt different now, tinged with uncertainty about what lay ahead. Tourists snapped photos as usual, unaware that the motionless figure in the red tunic was preparing to attempt something that would test every aspect of his character and ability. As dawn broke over London, Marcus packed his kit with the same methodical precision he brought to every task. Each item was carefully selected and positioned, reflecting both practical necessity and the mental discipline that would be crucial in the days ahead. His shooting medals remained in his quarters. Where he was going, reputation meant nothing. Only performance would matter. The train journey to Hereford gave him time to reflect on the path that had brought him to this moment. From standing guard outside a palace to attempting selection for the world's most elite military unit seemed impossible. Yet here he was. The quiet guardsman who had been ridiculed for his shooting ability was about to face challenges that would determine whether he possessed the complete package of skills and character the SAS demanded. Other candidates gathered at the selection facility, each carrying their own stories and motivations. Marcus recognized some faces from previous competitions and training exercises, but many were strangers representing various units throughout the British military. They shared only one thing: the desire to prove themselves worthy of wearing the winged dagger badge that marked membership in the Special Air Service. As the initial briefings began, Marcus felt the same calm focus that had served him so well on the shooting range. The ridicule and skepticism of recent months faded into background noise. Here, surrounded by men who had all volunteered for this ultimate test, past achievements meant nothing. Everything would be decided by what happened next. The SAS selection facility at Hereford appeared deceptively ordinary from the outside, but Marcus quickly learned that first impressions could be dangerously misleading. The compound buzzed with an energy that felt different from any military base he had experienced. This wasn't about drill ceremonies or polished uniforms. Everything here focused on one question: could these men perform when everything went wrong? Staff Sergeant Hayes, the selection course instructor, addressed the assembled candidates with characteristic directness. Gentlemen, you're here because someone believes you might have what it takes to join the regiment. That someone was probably wrong. His eyes swept across the group, lingering momentarily on each face. Over the next several weeks, we'll discover who among you possesses the physical capability, mental resilience, and character necessary for special operations. Marcus stood among 43 other candidates, each representing the best their respective units had to offer. Paratroopers, Royal Marines, guards, and soldiers from various regiments had gathered for this ultimate test. Some carried themselves with obvious confidence, their combat experience and elite unit backgrounds worn like badges of honor. Others, like Marcus, remained quietly focused, understanding that past achievements meant nothing in this arena. The first phase began with what instructors euphemistically called fitness assessment. The morning run started at a pace that would challenge most soldiers, but this was just the beginning. As the group moved through Welsh countryside, the pace gradually increased until men began falling behind. Marcus found his rhythm early, his breathing steady and his stride efficient. The months of preparation had conditioned his body for sustained effort, but he quickly realized that physical fitness was only part of what was being evaluated. Hayes and his team of instructors watched everything: how candidates responded to pressure, whether they helped struggling teammates, how they handled navigation errors. Every action was noted and analyzed. Marcus observed other candidates making subtle mistakes that would likely prove costly later. Some focused so intently on their own performance that they ignored obvious opportunities to assist others. Others became so concerned with helping that they compromised their own standards. The weight of equipment increased daily. What began as standard military kit gradually expanded to include additional gear that tested both physical endurance and mental adaptability. Marcus's shooting equipment remained part of his load, but now it competed for space and weight with navigation tools, survival gear, and communications equipment. Every item had to be maintained in perfect condition regardless of weather or exhaustion levels. Navigation exercises revealed the true complexity of selection. Candidates received coordinates and time limits that seemed impossible to meet through normal movement. The Welsh terrain offered every conceivable challenge: dense forests, steep mountains, boggy lowlands, and weather that changed without warning. Marcus discovered that his ceremonial training had unexpected benefits. The discipline required to maintain perfect bearing during hours of motionless guard duty translated surprisingly well to the mental focus needed for precise navigation under extreme fatigue. During the third week, the first major shooting assessment arrived. Marcus approached the range with quiet confidence but quickly realized this bore no resemblance to the controlled competitions where he had first demonstrated his abilities. Targets appeared at various distances without warning. Weather conditions changed rapidly. Equipment malfunctioned deliberately. The instructors created every possible variable that might affect marksmanship in real operations. Other candidates struggled with the unpredictable nature of the shooting scenarios. Men who had performed adequately in their units found themselves missing targets they would normally hit easily. The combination of physical exhaustion, time pressure, and equipment challenges revealed the difference between range shooting and operational marksmanship. Marcus, however, seemed to thrive in these conditions. His natural ability adapted seamlessly to the chaos, and his shots remained consistently accurate regardless of external factors. Staff Sergeant Hayes made his first direct comment to Marcus after observing a particularly challenging shooting sequence. "Interesting technique, Thompson. Where did you develop that approach to compensating for wind?" Marcus explained his method simply, describing how he read environmental conditions and adjusted his shooting accordingly. Hayes nodded slowly, making notes that Marcus couldn't see but suspected might be significant. The psychological pressure intensified as selection progressed. Sleep deprivation became a constant factor, with candidates operating on 2 or 3 hours of rest between challenges. Food remained basic and insufficient, testing how well men could function while their bodies demanded more fuel than they received. Marcus found himself drawing on reserves of mental strength he hadn't known existed, pushing through barriers that would have stopped him just months earlier. Other candidates began dropping out. Some failed to meet time standards on navigation exercises. Others suffered injuries that prevented continuation. A few simply decided that the cost of selection exceeded their desire to join the regiment. Each departure reduced the group's size and increased pressure on those who remained. Marcus noticed how the dynamic changed as numbers decreased. Some men became more supportive of each other, while others became increasingly competitive and isolated. The survival phase tested everything simultaneously. Candidates were given minimal equipment and expected to navigate to various checkpoints while maintaining their physical condition and mental alertness. Food became whatever could be found or caught in the Welsh wilderness. Sleep meant finding shelter wherever possible, and grabbing rest in whatever increments circumstances allowed. Marcus's shooting skills proved valuable in unexpected ways, enabling him to supplement his food supply with small game when opportunities arose. During one particularly challenging night navigation exercise, Marcus encountered another candidate who had become completely lost and was showing signs of dangerous exhaustion. The man was disoriented and making poor decisions that could result in serious injury or worse. Marcus faced a crucial choice: continuing to his own checkpoint on schedule, or risking his own selection to help someone who might not survive the night without assistance. Without hesitation, Marcus abandoned his own timeline to guide the struggling candidate to safety. They arrived at the checkpoint hours late, which typically meant automatic failure for timing requirements. The instructors noted their arrival but gave no indication of how this decision might affect their selection outcomes. Marcus accepted the possibility that helping his fellow candidate might cost him his place in the regiment, but he knew he had made the only choice his character would allow. Days later, Hayes called Marcus aside for his first individual assessment meeting. "Your shooting continues to be exceptional," he began, consulting notes from various exercises. "But that's not why you're still here." Marcus waited silently for the explanation. "Your decision to sacrifice your own timeline to help candidate Mitchell showed the kind of judgment and character we need in the regiment. Technical skills can be developed. Integrity and sound decision-making under pressure cannot be taught." As selection entered its final phase, Marcus realized he had already changed fundamentally from the quiet guardsman who had first demonstrated his shooting ability. The challenges had revealed capacities within himself that he hadn't known existed, while confirming that his natural marksmanship was indeed something special. Whether he ultimately succeeded or failed, he understood that he had already proven something important to himself about who he really was. The final phase of SAS selection arrived with deceptive simplicity. Only 12 candidates remained from the original 43, each having survived weeks of grueling physical and mental challenges. Marcus stood among this select group, his body leaner and harder than when he had first arrived at Hereford, his mind sharpened by constant pressure and decision-making under extreme stress. But the most difficult test still lay ahead. Resistance to interrogation was the official term, though everyone understood this meant something far more intense than the name suggested. Candidates would be subjected to psychological and physical pressure, designed to simulate capture and interrogation by hostile forces. The goal wasn't to break them completely, but to test their ability to maintain operational security and personal integrity when everything inside them screamed to surrender. Major Williams, who had first approached Marcus at Buckingham Palace, delivered the briefing with unusual seriousness. "This phase will push you beyond anything you've experienced. You'll be hungry, tired, disoriented, and under constant pressure to reveal information. The instructors will use every psychological technique available to break down your resistance." He paused, studying each candidate's face. "Some of you will not complete this phase. There's no shame in reaching your limit, but there's great honor in enduring when endurance seems impossible." The exercise began at dawn with a simulated capture scenario. Marcus found himself isolated from other candidates, hooded and restrained, transported to an unknown location where the real testing would begin. The facility was designed to be disorienting. Windowless rooms, constant lighting or complete darkness, temperature variations that made comfort impossible. Sleep became a luxury denied, replaced by brief periods of unconsciousness that provided no real rest. The interrogators were skilled professionals who understood human psychology better than most therapists. They began with seemingly casual questions about Marcus's background, his motivations for joining the SAS, his family relationships. When these yielded no operational information, the pressure increased systematically. Physical discomfort combined with psychological manipulation created a sustained assault on his mental defenses. Marcus drew on resources he had developed during his ceremonial guard duties. Standing motionless for hours outside Buckingham Palace had taught him to separate his mind from physical discomfort. The discipline required to maintain perfect bearing regardless of weather, fatigue, or distraction now served him in ways he had never anticipated. When interrogators tried to break his concentration through physical positioning and environmental stress, he found familiar mental pathways that helped him endure. The questioning grew more sophisticated as hours turned to days. Interrogators claimed to have captured other candidates who had already revealed sensitive information. They showed photographs that appeared to document other participants breaking under pressure. They created false scenarios suggesting that Marcus's continued resistance was pointless because operational security had already been compromised. Each technique was designed to provide justification for surrender, logical reasons why continued resistance served no purpose. Marcus's shooting background provided unexpected psychological armor. The focus and concentration required for precision marksmanship had developed mental discipline that proved valuable under interrogation. Just as he had learned to block out distractions on the firing range, he now found ways to compartmentalize his thoughts and maintain focus on essential information while external pressure attempted to fragment his attention. Sleep deprivation became a constant weapon against his mental defenses. The interrogators understood that exhaustion made people vulnerable to suggestion and more likely to make mistakes that revealed protected information. Marcus learned to find moments of rest even while appearing fully alert, micro-sleeps that provided minimal recovery, but helped maintain basic cognitive function. His body adapted to operating on virtually no sleep, drawing energy from reserves he hadn't known existed. On the fourth day of interrogation, the pressure reached its peak. The questioning became more personal, more aggressive, targeting his motivations and character rather than operational information. Interrogators suggested that his quiet nature indicated weakness, that his background as a ceremonial guard proved he wasn't suited for real military operations. They claimed his shooting ability was overrated, that he had succeeded through luck rather than skill. The personal attack stirred something deep within Marcus. Not anger, which would have compromised his judgment, but a quiet determination that had sustained him through months of ridicule from fellow soldiers. These interrogators were using the same tactics as the soldiers who had questioned his abilities after his shooting successes. The familiarity of the attacks actually strengthened his resolve rather than weakening it. During the most intense interrogation session, Marcus experienced something approaching an out-of-body experience. The physical discomfort and psychological pressure seemed to affect someone else, while his essential self remained protected and intact. This detachment allowed him to observe the interrogation techniques objectively, understanding their purpose while remaining immune to their effects. His responses became mechanical and consistent, providing no useful information despite hours of sustained pressure. The interrogators grew frustrated with Marcus's resistance. They had broken soldiers with more combat experience and supposedly stronger backgrounds. This quiet guardsman seemed to possess reserves of mental strength that defied their expectations. They increased pressure systematically, but Marcus adapted to each escalation while maintaining his essential defenses intact. Other candidates began appearing in his peripheral awareness. Though direct contact remained forbidden, Marcus could see that some had reached their breaking points and were being withdrawn from the exercise. Others showed signs of severe stress but continued to resist. He felt no satisfaction in outlasting other candidates, only a growing understanding that he possessed capabilities he had never fully recognized. On the seventh day, the interrogation suddenly stopped. Marcus was cleaned up, fed properly, and given his first real sleep in over a week. When he awakened, Staff Sergeant Hayes was waiting with a slight smile that suggested significant news. "Congratulations, Thompson. You've completed selection successfully. Welcome to the regiment." The words took several moments to fully register. Marcus had focused so completely on enduring each moment of the interrogation that he had stopped thinking about the ultimate goal. Now suddenly, he had achieved something that seemed impossible just months earlier. The quiet guardsman who had been ridiculed for his shooting ability had proven himself worthy of joining the world's most elite military unit. Hayes continued the debriefing with characteristic directness. "Your performance throughout selection was exceptional, but your resistance to interrogation was particularly impressive. You demonstrated mental resilience that exceeded our expectations, especially considering your limited combat experience. Marcus accepted the praise quietly, still processing the magnitude of what had just occurred. However, Hayes added, passing selection is just the beginning. Now you'll begin the real training that will prepare you for operational deployment. You've proven you have the character and basic capabilities we need. Now we'll discover what you can become with proper development. The weight of future challenges settled on Marcus's shoulders, but for the first time in months it felt manageable rather than overwhelming. As Marcus prepared to begin the next phase of his military evolution, he reflected on the journey that had brought him from ceremonial guard to SAS candidate. The ridicule and skepticism he had faced seemed insignificant now, overshadowed by the recognition that he possessed something genuinely special. His shooting ability had opened the door, but his character had carried him through when pure skill wasn't enough. Marcus Thompson's transformation from ceremonial guard to SAS operative accelerated rapidly following his successful completion of selection. The months that followed brought intensive training designed to develop his natural marksmanship into something far more sophisticated and deadly. While his shooting ability had opened doors, he quickly learned that becoming an operational sniper required mastering dozens of additional skills that had nothing to do with pulling triggers. The SAS sniper program was unlike anything Marcus had experienced during his military career. Where his previous training had focused on individual skills and standardized procedures, this new environment demanded creativity, adaptability, and the ability to think several steps ahead of any opponent. His instructors were veteran operators who had survived real combat situations, men whose expertise came from life and death experiences rather than theoretical knowledge. Sergeant Major Davidson, the lead sniper instructor, was a legend within the regiment. His confirmed kills numbered in the dozens across multiple conflicts, but more importantly, he had never lost a student during operational deployment. On Marcus's first day of specialized training, Davidson delivered a sobering introduction to the realities of military sniping. Everything you think you know about shooting is about to be challenged, Davidson began, studying Marcus with eyes that had seen too much combat. You've proven you can hit targets under controlled conditions, even difficult ones. But operational sniping means shooting when discovery means death, when missing means your teammates die, when environmental conditions are impossible and equipment fails at the worst possible moment. The training began with advanced marksmanship techniques that pushed Marcus's abilities to new levels. Where he had previously engaged stationary targets at known distances, he now practiced on moving targets at unknown ranges in adverse weather conditions. The shots became progressively more challenging, threading bullets between obstacles, engaging multiple targets in rapid succession, compensating for extreme environmental factors that would make most marksmen abandon their attempts. Marcus discovered that his natural ability adapted remarkably well to these increased demands. The fundamental skills that had made him exceptional remained intact, but now they were enhanced by sophisticated training in ballistics, weather reading, and target analysis. His shots became not just accurate but strategically planned, taking into account factors that extended far beyond simple marksmanship. Fieldcraft training revealed entirely new dimensions of sniper operations. Marcus learned to move through hostile territory undetected, to establish shooting positions that provided tactical advantage while remaining invisible to enemy forces. He studied camouflage techniques that went far beyond wearing appropriate clothing, learning to become part of the environment so completely that trained observers could pass within meters without detecting his presence. The psychological aspects of sniping proved as challenging as the technical skills. Davidson explained the unique mental pressures faced by military snipers, the isolation, the weight of individual responsibility, the need to make split-second decisions that could affect entire operations. A sniper often works alone or with minimal support, he emphasized. You must be completely self-reliant while maintaining perfect judgment under extreme stress. Marcus's quiet nature, which had sometimes worked against him in conventional military settings, became a significant advantage in sniper training. The patience required for ceremonial guard duty translated perfectly to the extended periods of observation and waiting that characterized sniper operations. While other students struggled with the mental discipline required to remain motionless for hours while maintaining perfect alertness, Marcus found the experience almost comfortable. Advanced technology became an integral part of his training. Modern military sniping involved sophisticated equipment for range finding, wind measurement, and ballistic calculation. Marcus learned to use laser rangefinders, ballistic computers, and advanced optics that could extend his effective range far beyond what traditional marksmanship allowed. The technology enhanced his natural abilities rather than replacing them, providing tools that made impossible shots merely difficult. Urban warfare scenarios presented unique challenges that required completely different approaches from rural or wilderness operations. Marcus practiced shooting from building tops through windows around obstacles that limited his fields of fire. He learned to account for the complex wind patterns created by urban environments, the different ballistic behaviors of bullets in confined spaces, the tactical considerations of operating in populated areas where civilian casualties were unacceptable. Counter-sniper training introduced him to the deadly chess game played between opposing marksmen. Marcus learned to identify the signs of enemy sniper activity, to analyze likely shooting positions, to move in ways that minimized his exposure to hostile fire. The training was intensely psychological as well as tactical. Understanding how enemy snipers thought and operated became as important as developing his own shooting skills. Night operations opened another realm of complexity. Marcus trained with thermal imaging equipment, night vision devices, and infrared targeting systems that allowed engagement of targets in complete darkness. The challenges were immense: equipment limitations, reduced visibility, the difficulty of range estimation without visual references. Yet his natural shooting ability adapted to these conditions with remarkable speed. During a particularly challenging night exercise, Marcus demonstrated skills that impressed even his veteran instructors. The scenario involved multiple moving targets at unknown ranges in near total darkness, with time constraints that simulated real operational pressure. While other students struggled to engage even a single target effectively, Marcus systematically eliminated all assigned threats with precision that seemed impossible under the conditions. Davidson approached Marcus after the exercise with something approaching amazement. "In 20 years of training snipers, I've never seen anyone adapt to complex scenarios as quickly as you do," he said quietly. "Your natural ability is remarkable, but more importantly, you seem to understand instinctively how all the different elements work together. That kind of integrated thinking usually takes years to develop." The praise meant more to Marcus than any medal or recognition he had received. Coming from someone with Davidson's background and experience, it represented validation that his abilities were genuinely exceptional, rather than simply above average. More importantly, it suggested that he might be capable of achievements that would justify the faith placed in him by those who had recommended him for SAS selection. As Marcus's training progressed toward operational readiness, he began to understand the true significance of his journey from ridiculed guardsman to elite sniper. The shooting ability that had initially drawn attention was just the foundation for something much more significant. He was developing into a complete operator, someone capable of independent action in the most dangerous and demanding situations imaginable. The final phase of his sniper training would test everything he had learned in scenarios designed to simulate real combat operations. Success would qualify him for operational deployment, placing him among the most elite marksmen in the world. Failure would mean reassignment to conventional SAS duties, still an honor, but not the specialized role for which his unique abilities seemed perfectly suited. As Marcus prepared for these final evaluations, he reflected on the remarkable path that had brought him to this point. The ridicule he had faced seemed like ancient history now, overshadowed by the recognition that he possessed something truly rare. Soon, he would have the opportunity to prove that the quiet guardsman could perform when real lives hung in the balance. The call came at 3 a.m, 6 weeks after Marcus had completed his advanced sniper training. The secure phone beside his bed buzzed with the distinctive tone that meant immediate deployment. After months of preparation and simulation, he was about to face his first operational assignment as an SAS sniper. The mission briefing would reveal whether all his training had prepared him for the reality of combat operations. Major Williams waited in the secure briefing room with aerial photographs, intelligence reports, and tactical maps spread across a large table. The mission was classified at the highest levels, but the basic situation was straightforward and deadly serious. A terrorist cell had taken hostages in a compound near the Syrian border, including 2 British aid workers whose capture had been kept secret from media and families to prevent panic and political complications. The situation is deteriorating rapidly, Williams explained, pointing to satellite images of the compound. Intelligence suggests the hostages will be executed within 48 hours unless demands are met. Those demands are impossible to fulfill, which means we have one option: direct action to recover the hostages before the deadline passes. The compound presented formidable challenges for any rescue operation. Located on elevated ground with excellent fields of observation, it was designed to be defensible against conventional assault. The terrorists had positioned themselves strategically, using the hostages as human shields while maintaining weapons positions that could repel frontal attacks. Any rescue attempt would require precision and coordination that left no room for error. Marcus studied the aerial photographs with the analytical eye his training had developed. The compound's layout suggested several potential sniper positions, but each presented unique challenges in terms of approach, concealment, and escape routes. More critically, the intelligence indicated that immediate elimination of specific terrorists would be essential to prevent hostage execution during the first moments of any assault. Your role will be overwatch and precision elimination, Williams continued. The assault team will approach from the eastern perimeter, but their success depends on neutralizing 3 specific high-value targets before they can harm the hostages. Intelligence has identified these individuals and their likely positions within the compound. He slid photographs across the table showing 3 men whose faces Marcus memorized instantly. The timeline was compressed beyond anything Marcus had experienced during training. Within 6 hours, he would be inserted into hostile territory with minimal support, required to establish a shooting position that provided clear sight lines to targets over 800 meters away. The shots would need to be taken simultaneously with the beginning of the assault, leaving no time for adjustment or second attempts. During the helicopter flight to the insertion point, Marcus reviewed every detail of the mission plan while checking and rechecking his equipment. His rifle was a precision instrument calibrated specifically for this operation, equipped with advanced optics and ballistic computers that would help compensate for the environmental factors at the target location. Every round in his ammunition load had been hand-selected for consistency and accuracy. The insertion took place in complete darkness, 40 kilometers from the target compound. Marcus would need to approach on foot across terrain that provided minimal cover, while avoiding detection by terrorist sentries and possible patrol units. The route had been planned using satellite imagery and drone reconnaissance, but ground conditions could differ significantly from what intelligence suggested. Moving through hostile territory alone tested every aspect of Marcus's training. The fieldcraft skills he had developed during SAS preparation proved essential as he navigated around potential observation points and possible patrol routes. His movements were deliberate and calculated, each step planned to minimize noise and exposure while maintaining progress toward his objective. The approach took over 12 hours, with Marcus covering ground only during periods when he could remain completely concealed. He used natural terrain features and existing vegetation to mask his movement, sometimes remaining motionless for hours when aircraft or vehicles passed nearby. The mental discipline developed during his ceremonial guard duties proved invaluable, allowing him to maintain focus despite physical discomfort and the constant tension of possible discovery. Establishing his final shooting position required another 4 hours of careful preparation. Marcus selected a location that provided clear sight lines to all 3 target areas, while offering concealment from multiple directions. He constructed a hide that would be virtually invisible from ground level while allowing precise rifle deployment when the time came for engagement. The shooting position was over 900 meters from the compound, at the extreme range of reliable precision shooting even under ideal conditions. Environmental factors made the challenge even more difficult. Wind patterns around the elevated terrain were complex and variable. Temperature differences affected ballistic performance, and atmospheric conditions reduced visibility at crucial moments. Through his scope, Marcus could observe the compound's activity patterns and verify the locations of his assigned targets. The 3 men moved predictably between specific areas, suggesting that timing would be critical for successful engagement. He noted their routines and calculated the optimal moment for simultaneous elimination that would provide maximum advantage for the assault team. Communication. with the assault team was maintained through encrypted radio, equipment that allowed coordination without revealing his position. Marcus provided regular updates on target movements and compound activity, building a real-time picture that would inform the timing and approach of the rescue operation. His observations proved invaluable for refining the assault plan based on actual conditions rather than intelligence estimates. As 0 hour approached, Marcus felt the familiar calm that had characterized his best shooting performances. The external pressure and life-or-death consequences faded into background awareness as he focused on the technical requirements of the shots he would need to make. His breathing settled into the controlled rhythm that optimized stability and accuracy. The assault began with precise timing that left no room for hesitation. Marcus's first target appeared exactly where intelligence had predicted, and his shot was perfect. The man dropped instantly without any opportunity to alert others or harm hostages. The second and third targets fell within seconds, their elimination so smooth and coordinated that the assault team was able to enter the compound before defensive positions could be organized. What followed was a textbook demonstration of special operations precision. The assault team reached the hostages within minutes of Marcus's shots, finding them unharmed and ready for immediate extraction. The entire operation, from the first sniper shot to successful withdrawal with all hostages recovered, took less than 8 minutes. It was a masterpiece of planning and execution that would become a case study for future operations. Marcus maintained his overwatch position until the assault team and hostages were safely clear of the compound. His role continued through the extraction phase, providing security against possible pursuit or reinforcement of remaining terrorist forces. Only when all friendly forces were confirmed safe did he begin his own withdrawal from the operational area. The helicopter extraction found Marcus exactly at the predetermined location and time. As they lifted off and headed toward friendly territory, he felt a sense of completion that went far beyond mission accomplishment. The quiet guardsman who had been ridiculed for his shooting ability had just performed flawlessly in one of the most demanding operational scenarios possible. Every shot had been perfect, every decision correct, every aspect of his performance exactly what the situation required. Back at base, the mission debrief confirmed what everyone already knew. Marcus's shooting had been exceptional even by SAS standards. The precision required for simultaneous elimination of 3 targets at extreme range, under combat conditions with no opportunity for adjustment or correction, represented marksmanship of the highest possible level. His transition from ceremonial guard to operational sniper was now complete and undeniable. 3 years after his first operational deployment, Marcus Thompson had become something of a legend within the special operations community. His confirmed record included over 40 precision eliminations across multiple theaters of operation, with a success rate that defied statistical probability. The quiet guardsman who had once been ridiculed for his shooting ability was now recognized as one of the most effective military snipers in the world. The transformation wasn't just professional, it was personal and profound. Marcus carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who had tested his abilities against the ultimate standards and emerged victorious. The uncertainty and self-doubt that had characterized his early military career had been replaced by an unshakable knowledge of his own capabilities. He had become exactly what those early critics had claimed he could never be, a real soldier whose skills could determine the outcome of life or death situations. The call to return to London came unexpectedly, delivered through official channels that suggested something significant was developing. Marcus had been operating in various international locations for months, conducting missions that rarely made headlines but often prevented catastrophes that would have dominated global news. The summons home could mean anything from new assignment briefings to ceremonial obligations related to his original regiment. Colonel Henderson waited in a conference room at the Ministry of Defense, surrounded by commendation certificates and mission photographs that documented Marcus's operational history. The meeting began formally, but quickly shifted to something more personal as Henderson expressed admiration for achievements that exceeded everyone's expectations. "Your operational record speaks for itself," Henderson began, consulting files that contained classified details of Marcus's missions. 42 confirmed eliminations, 0 friendly fire incidents, 0 mission failures due to shooting performance. Those statistics represent the finest marksmanship record in regiment history. Marcus accepted the praise quietly, understanding that such recognition from senior leadership meant his abilities had been noted at the highest levels of military command. However, Henderson continued, your most significant contribution may be what you've proven about identifying and developing exceptional talent. When Major Williams first recommended you for SAS selection, many people questioned whether a ceremonial guard could possess the complete skill set required for special operations. Your success has changed how we evaluate potential candidates. The conversation revealed the broader impact of Marcus's journey from Buckingham Palace to operational sniper. His example had influenced recruiting and selection procedures throughout the Special Forces community. Talented individuals who might have been overlooked due to their backgrounds or unconventional paths were now receiving opportunities they would never have been offered previously. Marcus's success had proven that exceptional ability could emerge from unexpected sources. We're establishing a new advanced marksmanship program, Henderson explained, designed to identify and develop the next generation of precision shooters. The program will bear your name and incorporate training methods based on your development path. From ceremonial guard to operational sniper, we'd like you to lead this initiative while continuing your operational duties. The opportunity represented recognition of Marcus's achievements at the highest possible level. His methods and insights would shape how future snipers were trained, potentially affecting military effectiveness for decades. More personally, it offered a chance to help other soldiers achieve their potential regardless of their backgrounds or the skepticism they might face from conventional thinkers. Marcus's first visit back to Buckingham Palace in over 3 years felt surreal. He wore civilian clothes to avoid attention, but the familiar surroundings brought back memories of the ceremonial duties that had first revealed his shooting abilities. The guards on duty recognized him, their respectful greetings reflecting awareness that their former colleague had achieved something extraordinary in the wider military world. Captain Richardson, now promoted to major, greeted Marcus with obvious pride. When you left for SAS selection, I knew you had potential, he said warmly. But I never imagined you would become one of the most successful operators in regiment history. Your achievements have brought honor to the entire Coldstream Guards, and more importantly, you've proven that excellence can emerge from any background. The reunion with his former colleagues was emotionally complex. Some of the soldiers who had ridiculed his shooting abilities were still serving with the regiment, though their attitudes had changed dramatically. Where once they had questioned his skills and suggested he was lucky or overrated, they now spoke of him with genuine respect and admiration. The transformation in their perspectives was complete and seemingly sincere. Corporal Davies, who had been among the most vocal critics of Marcus's early shooting successes, approached him privately during the visit. I owe you an apology, he said directly. When you were setting those shooting records, I thought you were getting attention you didn't deserve. I was wrong about your abilities, and more importantly, I was wrong about your character. What you've accomplished since leaving the regiment has been extraordinary. The apology meant more to Marcus than any official recognition or medal he had received. It represented acknowledgement from someone who had questioned his potential, that he had indeed proven himself beyond any reasonable doubt. More significantly, it demonstrated that people could change their perspectives when presented with compelling evidence that challenged their initial assumptions. Marcus's final meeting in London took place at the same shooting range where he had first demonstrated the abilities that would change his life. The facility had been upgraded with new equipment and expanded training areas, but the fundamental purpose remained the same: identifying and developing marksmanship excellence among military personnel. Major Williams, who had first recognized Marcus's potential, joined him for this visit. Together they watched new candidates attempting to qualify for advanced shooting programs, each hoping to demonstrate abilities that might lead to special operations opportunities. Williams pointed out several promising shooters whose potential might have been overlooked under previous evaluation methods. Your example has changed how we think about talent identification, Williams explained. We've learned to look beyond traditional indicators and focus on fundamental capabilities that can be developed regardless of background. Several candidates in current selection programs would never have been considered before your success demonstrated what was possible. As Marcus prepared to return to operational duties, he reflected on the remarkable journey that had brought him from ridiculed guardsman to respected sniper and now to training program leader. The path had been challenging and sometimes painful, but it had revealed capabilities within himself that he had never imagined possible. More importantly, it had proven that exceptional achievement was possible for anyone willing to pursue excellence regardless of obstacles or skepticism. The quiet guardsman who had once stood motionless outside Buckingham Palace had become something far greater than anyone had predicted. His shooting abilities had opened doors, but his character and determination had carried him through challenges that pure skill could never have overcome. The ridicule he had faced seemed insignificant now, overshadowed by achievements that spoke louder than any criticism. Marcus Thompson's story had become an inspiration throughout the military community, proving that greatness could emerge from the most unexpected sources. The silent royal guard had found his voice through actions rather than words, demonstrating that true excellence reveals itself not through boasting or self-promotion, but through consistent performance when everything depends on getting it right. His legacy would live on in the soldiers he would train, and the lives that would be saved by precision shooting performed at the highest possible level. In the end, Marcus had proven something far more significant than his shooting ability. He had demonstrated that character, combined with natural talent and proper development, could overcome any obstacle and achieve any goal. The boy who had joined the Coldstream Guards seeking purpose and meaning had found both, along with a calling that would define the rest of his military career.